Okay, so the format of this call is like sort of a teaching. I'll tell you a lot of things and entertain you and show you how you can make it easy to work with compliance and multiple frameworks, and show you, by the end, I'll show you also Cyberjuice, how you can do it in there. And all questions are welcome. There are no stupid questions. So you can put your questions in the chat, or you can use the raise hand that you have in Zoom, if you can find that, or you can simply wave if you can't find it. And Davide has promised to keep an eye on everyone and on the chat. So in case I miss it, I'm going to ask him, do we have any questions? And he'll help me out. So that's the format. And are there any questions about that already now? No, all good. Okay. So let me share the screen here. Okay, so this week's call is the first in a series of 6 calls, but we also opened it up to people that are not already in this 6-week program. So just so you know, it's a bit of a mixed audience. And we're going to talk about introduction to 3 different security frameworks and how they actually are similar and fit together if you need to have more than one. For example, NIS2 is a requirement now for many, and maybe you already have ISO 27001 or DSEAL, or you want to have both. So it's good to know how they fit together and how you can actually work with all of them without making 3 different big programs or sets of documents. So that's what we're going to go into here today. Everyone's welcome. Like I said, we have a mixed audience today. Some are already using the Cyberjuice platform, and some are new to the platform but have been working with compliance, and some are just curious. So you're all welcome. Now, it's good to set some goals. What are we going to do today? So by the end of this call today, you should have a somewhat idea of what is ISO 27001, DSEAL and NIS2, and how are they different, how are they similar. So a little bit of the structure and general things to know. Of course, it's not going to be very detailed, but it's like the overall structure and what is it even, how are they different, how are they similar. And then we're going to dive into the first tiny steps on how to start your own cybersecurity program, like what are the first important foundation steps to take. And then I'm going to give you an overview of the full 6-week program so you know what's coming and your next steps. And we have a special offer for everyone here. If you have any questions during the 6-week program, or in general, we have a Slack channel that we are keeping an eye on and answering questions during these 6 weeks and also after. So it's an open Slack channel where you're all welcome to join. And any kind of question you have around cybersecurity or compliance, we're gonna answer. And if we can't answer in our team, we're gonna reach out to some of our partners and see if they might be able to help out, pointing you in the right direction. So it's an excellent place to come with all your questions and also have peer discussions. It's great to meet other smaller companies that are also working with this and see, how did you solve this problem? What kind of solution have you looked at, and how did that work for you? So it's a great community to be part of. And I think David is going to share the sign-up link in the chat already. There's also going to be an email after the call today with all that information, so you can join the Slack channel then. Okay, I'm just going to pause and see if there's any questions or anything right now. No. All good. Okay. So after the call, like I said, you should have a basic understanding of how the 3 standards are different and yet have same structure. And also, we're going to see how the Cyberjuice platform can help organize multiple frameworks without doing like 3 different projects. And then you should know by the end of this, what is the next step. So a little bit about me for those who don't know me already. I'm the founder of Cyberjuice, which is a SaaS platform, and we help tech startups and scale-ups with cybersecurity project without making it a huge big spaceship. We make it human and we make it fun and engaging. And I have a technical background, and I've done many of these types of projects with ISO 27001 and DSEAL in companies of various sizes, up to 200 people. And I also have a background in coaching and some teaching at university. So a bit of a mix that all comes together in this space. So I'm really happy to do this kind of work. And Cyberjuice, we help with the headache of security documentation, make it go away. And we do that by making it as easy and as effortless as possible. We can't make all decisions for you, but we can make it easier and more bite-sized, so you know what to do and where you need to make some decisions and some choices. We also help by adding energy, enthusiasm, and make it feel more light instead of the usual. I would say it can be a bit of a drag to do a lot of documentation, and we try to make it easy, bite-sized, and light. And we also help by creating a friendly space where, like I like to say, there are no stupid questions. Okay, so now we get to the real content of this call. So how are these 3 standards, ISO 27001, DSEAL, and NIS2, how are they structured and what should you know? So all of them are risk-based and have this continuous improvement philosophy and structure built in. So the name of the ISO standard, for example, is Information Security, Cybersecurity and Privacy Protection, Information Security Management Systems. Okay, that's a lot of words. What it means is that it's a framework and a system for how you're going to manage your information security and your cybersecurity and your privacy protection in a way that keeps you organized and helps you continuously improve. So it's a management framework. And it's very abstract if you look into the standard, because it needs to fit all types and sizes of companies, everything from a shoe factory and a hairdresser to a tech startup and a huge company like Microsoft. So when you create a standard that has to fit all those types, it has to be very abstract. So there's no checklist. It's not like a list you can just say, okay, I just need this, this, and this, and then I'm done. It's more like you have to go through a process and make choices about how this fits into your reality. And everything is risk-based. So risk assessment is really at the core of this standard, and also the 2 other standards, or the 2 other frameworks. These 2 is not a standard. I'll come back to that. So it's not like a law text, it's more like a framework. And it's based on what's called lean management philosophy that you might have heard about before, that has this plan, do, check, act cycle. So that's actually built into the ISO standard. And that's a cycle of continuous improvement. So you plan something, you implement it, then you check how well does it work, and then you act, which means you improve if there's something in that check that shows that things are not as good as you want them to be. There's opportunity for improvement. So that's the continuous improvement cycle. So all of the 3 frameworks have this in common. They have continuous improvement cycle built in, and they have some sort of requirements. So I'll come back to these because they look a little bit different. It's different how detailed and how clear they are. So we'll dive into that for each of them, how it looks. So if we go into the ISO 27001, it has something called the Annex A controls. And then it has something called the clauses. So two different things where you can see requirements. So a clause can look like this. 5.2 says that top management must establish information security policy, and then it has some things about how that looks, and it must be documented. So this is an example from the ISO 27001 standard. It's a clause. It means, and the clauses are something that are required. So this is something you have to have if you're following ISO 27001. So as you can see, it's quite abstract. It says something about, yeah, you need commitments and you need it documented and communicated, but not a lot about how you do this. And still in the ISO 27001, we have the Annex A. So that is a long list with 93 controls. And what is interesting about this is that they're actually not strict requirements. Again, you have to look at each of them and say, are they applicable to our organization? Yes or no? And if yes, then you should implement them. If no, you can say they're not applicable. So in that sense, they're not strict requirements because some of them can be not applicable. But you do need to have a good answer if someone comes and says and asks, why is that control not applicable to you? For example, a control can be working in secure areas. So you might not have any kind of secure areas or work that needs secure areas. So you can say that's not applicable and you can explain why it's not applicable. Then there's another control up here, 518, access rights. And that's general like access to systems. And if you say that's not applicable, it's very hard to explain in most cases that it's not applicable. So this one will usually be a control that you would have. So that's how the requirements for the ISO standard works. We have the clauses that are inside the standard itself, and then this Annex A is like an appendix with all the 93 controls, where you look at each of them and say, this one we need, and this one is not applicable. So that's the ISO requirements. And then if you want more detailed guidance of, okay, how do we actually do this access control? The ISO 27001 is linked to another standard in the same family with the number 2 instead of 1. And it just simply contains, it's a folding out of the Annex A. So you can look into that one and get some help. Okay, how do I actually implement this control 518? So it folds out the text here and gives you more guidance. And I just, showing some of the text, how it looks. So here you get some more information and you can use that to actually implement it. Okay, I'm just going to pause here and ask if there are any questions.
Yes, Bodil, question.
Yeah.
Do you require all the 93 controls to pass certification for it?
No, it's like I said, you have to look at each of them and say, is this applicable for us? Yes or no. So it might be in many smaller companies, maybe it's, it really depends on what you're doing. If you're a software company, it would be a lot of them. It would be maybe 60, 70 controls that are applicable, but some of them are not. Like a lot of the physical controls, like secure areas and secure loading area and stuff like that, you can say it's not applicable. So no, you don't need to have all the controls implemented to pass an audit.
All right.
Okay, let's move on. So now I'm going to look at DSEAL. And here the requirements are called criteria. So there are no clauses. In DSEAL, you just have a list of criteria. DSEAL is a Danish standard, by the way, currently only in Denmark, but the plan is to spread it out in Europe. So here they have a little bit like the Annex A, a list of criteria, but no clauses. And if we look at if we zoom in on one criteria, 3.3, user access management. So you see already there's access control in the ISO and we have access management in the DCL. So a lot of the same stuff is going on. And here we have protection of user access and privileged access rights. Okay, so that's a criteria. Now, how do we, that's not a lot of text. But then the DCL, the way they have structured it is in the next page here. If you go into that platform, you can unfold this 3.3.1 and see, okay, what is it actually we need to do? And then they will have a list of like more detailed guidance. For example, all companies' user account unique and only assigned to a single individual. So that's one requirement. So that's very specific. And also here, this is protected with multi-factor authentication. So you can go into each of those requirements and get a more detailed list. So can you see this is kind of the same as in the ISO, we had the Annex A. And then if you wanted an unfolding of a control, you could look into this 27002, this like family standard, and see an unfolding, a guidance. So it's a little bit the same structure here. So Annex A in the ISO and the criteria in the DCL are similar. I see something going on in the chat. Do we have some questions? Should all be replied yes, or can it be acceptable variations for DCL? Great question. So in order to go for the DCL certification, you actually need to answer yes to all of these, unless you have a, there's compensatory control. So you can say we have something else, and then you need to explain what that is. So there is a little, exception possibility, but in general, you should answer yes to everything before you say to DCL, we're ready for audit. Great question. Okay. Now we move to NIS2. So NIS2, you've probably heard a lot about, it's been talked about it for the last 2 years. It's so this is very different. This is not a standard like DCL and ISO. This is a European law, a directive. So this comes from the European Union, and it's going to be written into the Danish law and the Dutch and the German. So every member country has to write it into a law that applies to that country. So this means that you can get a fine if you're not complying to the law. So don't get nervous when I say this, because you're probably not directly under NIS2. Everyone in this room are from smaller companies, and this NIS2 is directly applicable to companies that are in specific sectors that are critical for society, like energy, transport, and food supply. So it's a societal perspective, like how do we protect our whole society? And companies that are in that sector and that has a certain size. So if you're very small, you are not directly part of NIS2. But that being said, if you are a supplier to someone in the energy sector, for example, then you're also going to feel the effects of this law, because there's a lot of focus on the supply chain. So, so let's say you're a supplier to the energy sector, then that energy company will look at its supply chain and say, how is your security, and are you documenting this? And we need to see risk assessment, and we need to see you have everything under control. So in that sense, it hits a lot of, it affects a lot of SMEs, smaller companies. And so when we look at NIS2, the requirements are organized in articles, mainly Article 21 and 23. And just to show you, this is how it looks. So it is very high level the way it, if you go in and read it. So you don't get a lot of help with, okay, how am I going to actually implement it? What does it really mean when they say basic cyber hygiene, for example? What does that mean? Or incident handling? What is inside? How can I unfold this? You don't get a lot of help currently, but they have written into this law that they can point to certain standards and say you must comply with this standard, and that can be the ISO 27001. It could be the DSEAL standard, and if you comply with that, then you're also good with NIS2. So we just don't know yet which standards they're going to point to. But what we can see when we look into NIS2 is that it's very much an ISO 27000 light. So if you've implemented ISO 27001, you're in a very good place. And also DSEAL has been out and in the press and have said, if you follow DSEAL, you're also good with NIS2. So we can look to those standards, but just to know that this is a law. So it's different. You cannot directly ask for NIS2 certification. Okay, do we have any questions around this before I move on?
Yeah, maybe from me, Bodil Pernille. Is there anything where you think you should be aware where NIS2 differentiates? Let's say you have like a DSEAL and an ISO certification. Would there be any places where you should be a little bit aware that NIS2 is actually kind of stronger than those two certifications?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's one thing to pay attention to, and that is the requirements for incident reporting. A little bit like we have with the GDPR, there's a 72-hour rule. If you have a breach, if you realize you have a breach, you have to report it within 72 hours. And in NIS2, there's a 24-hour rule for reporting. And again, that's going to hit the companies that are directly affected, but it's going to trickle down, of course. So you might see contracts where it says, we need immediate reporting if you have an incident that affects us. So a good preparation for reporting incident is something to be aware of.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, thanks.
Yes. Okay. So now just a question I often get, so where is the standard? So I just want to make sure I cover that. So the ISO 27001, this is something you actually have to buy. You cannot search online and download a PDF like we're used to. All information is free, but not in this case. The ISO standard is governed by a private organization, and you have to buy it. It's under a license. So you can go to, if you want a version that has English and Danish, you go to that standard here and buy that for around 1,000 kroner. Or you can go to the international ISO.org and get it in English and probably many other languages as well. The DSEAL, you have free access. You can go to their website, see all the criteria. You can sign up for free to try if you want to like check off all those criteria for yourself. You can simply sign up. It only costs money when you decide to get certified. And NIS2 is a law EU directive, and here's one place you can see it. There are many places it's available online, but this is just one place. So, and now just a word on what does it mean to be, sorry, is there a question in the chat? No, okay. What does it mean to be compliant versus certified? Because sometimes there's a bit of confusion about these words. So compliant is simply that you have implemented a standard and you're following and you have documented it. So it's like you're learning to drive a car, you went to the classes, you know how to drive, but you didn't yet get your driver's license. So you didn't take the exam, so to speak. So that's compliant. You're doing everything, but you didn't get the piece of paper yet. And certified means that you are first compliant, you've documented all the things, you're doing all the things, and then you paid an external auditor, a certification body, to come and check your implementation is okay. So this corresponds to taking your driver's license. And Cyberjuice cannot certify you. Cyberjuice can help get you ready, get everything documented and implemented, so you're ready to call an auditor and get certified, but we cannot certify. And again, with NIS2, it's different. You cannot get a NIS2 certification. It's a law like GDPR and not a standard. So you can only prepare by using the other standards. Okay. So here is a little bit of an overview. So we have the ISO 27001, and with this like sister standard where you can fold out the Annex A. It's international, and the price for certification is pretty high for smaller companies. Yeah, I think I have a slide. Next slide will show some prices. DSeal is Denmark for now, and the price for certification is quite low compared to the ISO. And there's a big overlap. DSeal is like ISO Light plus some data ethics and privacy on top. And then we have NIS2 is the EU directive, and it corresponds to like a small version of the ISO 27001. And then there's something called the SOC 2, which you may have heard of, especially if you are building software. It's an American standard, and it's very similar to another standard that we have that is international, that is a CPA standard. So it means it's just a different, the US always likes to have their own standard. So they have SOC 2, and then we have international ISAE, which is a CPA standard. So it's just a little bit, it's a different kind of organization instead of ISO. But it's very similar. And if you wanted to go for one of these, you would also build it up using the same structure as the ISO 27001 and put more attention on the controls, because that's really where they pay attention to. So that's a lot of different standards, and it can be really confusing, like what is right for us and where should we start? Is it the ISO or the DSeal or SOC 2 or this ISAE thing? And I would say it really depends. What are your customers asking for and which market are you in? If you are very much in an American market, then a SOC 2 is probably a good place to start. If you are very much in Europe, it's more the ISO standard or the ISAE. And if you're mostly in Denmark, or if you are business to consumer, then probably the DSeal is a good place to look. Also because of the price, perhaps. Okay, any questions about this? Oh, okay, I'll move on. Yeah, so here actually the price example for an ISO certification. So this is an approximate, and it's assuming one company address. And this ISAE CPA standard is similar. So you can see it's these are Danish prices, Danish kroner. So it's a lot of money, and this is for the first year, and then you have to repeat. It's they come and check every year, so it's not just a one-time fee. And it can actually be cheaper. We have a partner that can do this 50% cheaper with remote audit. So that's something new that they can do now. So that's also worth noticing. So it can be cheaper than this. DSeal, as a comparison, again, it's a yearly price. Depends on the size of the company. And before you say, oh yeah, we are here, we're a small company, 2,800 kroner. Not if you're building software, then you come into this group instead, even if you're small. But still, this price is a lot less than what we see up here. So also worth taking into account, what is your business case for this? and when is the right time to go for this more international standard. Yeah, so again, look at your business case and the cost and what are the potential gains. Can you win more customers? Can you save time because discussions are a lot easier when you can say you're certified? You don't get into a lot of individual audits with your customers, then it makes a lot of sense to do this. Okay. Now we are gonna dive in to how to actually get started. So the best place to start, in my opinion, is at the very top. What is your top level security policy? And so really ask yourself, like, align with your business goals. So what is it you want with your information security management system? What is it you're trying to achieve? It should be aligned with your business strategy. Otherwise, it's going to be something that hangs on the side and is not really, doesn't get the attention that it needs in order to be efficient. So it can be something like, we want to be compliant with a certain standard, so we can show that to our partners or customers and win more deals. It could be as simple as that. So start at the top with your goals for why you're doing this. And then we have something special for the scope. So this is only for the ISO standard that you can choose your scope. For the D seal, it's always the whole company. So that's a little bit of a difference between those two. And in smaller companies that are creating software, it's usually either you choose the whole organization or you choose those that are creating your software product and the supporting processes. So that can make sense if, for example, you have one part of the company is working on your software and support around the software, and another part is maybe consulting business. So they're quite different and separate, and one can exist without the other in a way. Then you can split it up. In many cases, you're just doing one thing, so then it's easier to just say it's the whole organization. And then you set up a security organization, which just means you define some roles that are handling this security management system. And then, very important, you need to have management commitment. If you have a CEO who doesn't even know this is happening and thinks it's not important at all, it's never going to work. I've seen it many times. If the CEOs are paying attention when people are talking about this, if there's no backing up that this is important, the rest of the organization will also feel that it's not important. It's very, very difficult to roll this out and have the organization be part of it, because it really has to be a part of the culture. A lot of this is people making small choices and being secure. So you cannot just, of course, you can write a bunch of policies and say now we have paperwork that we are secure, but if you're not implementing it, then you're never going to be secure, and an audit will probably also show that. So management commitment is super important. So just have that in mind as well. And so diving into what is this security organization and the roles. So the typical roles and responsibility for a software company is, first of all, something called a CISO. That means Chief Information Security Officer, or sometimes you can choose a name, Information Security Manager. You can, of course, choose any name you want. There are no rules here, but these are just some standard names. And this is the person responsible for the overall information security management system, and who has a connection with the top management. So either is part of the top management or have close collaboration there. And then we have the IT manager, who is a person in charge of anything with laptops and giving people access to all the usual business operation systems like email and SharePoint or Google Drive, if that's what you use. All those systems that you use in everyday operations for the whole company. And setting up two-factor and helping you with password manager, all that kind of stuff. That's an IT manager role. And then we have a DevOps manager, which is same as the IT manager, but just for the operation around the software product. So this is an example for a software company, remember? So these are the typical roles. And of course, one person can have all the roles. In some cases, in a very small company with 3 people, maybe it's one person doing all of these. And then if you have a lot of personal data you handle on behalf of customers, say you have a software platform that has, let's say, healthcare data for a lot of people, then you should also have a DPO. That means data protection officer. And that's someone who is in charge of personal data and reporting to the authorities, which in Denmark is called Datatilsynet, in case there's a breach. So this is if you have a lot of that. And then sometimes it can be helpful to have a product manager who's a person who handles the customer's access to your platform you're building. So that's also a security role because they handle permissions and access to your product. Okay, I'm going to pause here and ask if there are any questions. No. You had a slide to remind me. Okay. So now I am going to show you how you can actually do some of this, or not some of this, all of this inside Cyberjuice. Okay, so this is a Cyberjuice platform. It looks a little bit boring right now on the front page, but that's because we haven't done anything yet. So you come in here and you have a bunch of cyber tasks, we call them. And you can open one up. So here we have our top level policy. And we also have, security organization. So the place to start is really with security organization. And I don't have anything yet. So it's telling me I have to start with a cyber task to define it. Oh, okay, typical. Yeah, a little glitch in the demo, that always happens. So here we get a little bit of information, a little bit of help. Many companies don't have clearly defined who's responsible, and that can mean that security falls between the crack. Okay, assign a person. So we recommend to split security responsibility between a couple of key people. Yes. So here we get a little background about this, and here are the suggested roles that we also saw before, and an explanation. I'm gonna click a little bit quickly through this, as we already talked about it. So who should be the CISO? So now in this demo company, I'm just gonna assign myself. Go to the next one, DevOps manager. I can also choose. I only have myself in this company so far, so it's a little bit the same. If I want to see the information again, I can click here and finish. Okay. Oh, I've done something now. That's nice. And then we're going to do, remember the second task we had in that first steps overview where you start was to define a top level policy. So this is really how we do all the documentation. First, we get some background information. And do you have a top level security policy? I'm going to say no. Yes, we'd like to see a suggestion. Okay, so here's some prompts and an example answer. And so if I want to use this answer, I just copy it over here by clicking here, and then I go save. And then we get to the scope that we just talked about. Okay, here's an example. I'm going to copy this. And then if I want to change something, I just put my own answer here. I can, of course, delete, and I can do a lot of stuff in here. And then we continue in this way with some text. And the good thing is that we have designed these example texts. So in most cases, you can reuse like 90% or even the whole thing in some cases. So that makes it really fast and easy to create your policies. And here's some security roles. Here we have the roles defined. So maybe I want to look through those and see it's what I want. Maybe I don't have this one. Okay. And now we come to a really exciting part. Because here I can, so all the previous is text, which is great for context and for humans reading what is the idea here. But when it comes to security, it really comes down to what are the things we're doing, like what are the habits we have, the behaviors, and what are the things we're doing on a recurrent basis, and of course, the technical implementations that we've put in place. So here we can define some habits. We want everyone to understand the security goals, and we want them to read and understand the top level goals of the company. And we can also add our own habits if we want. And these are things we can then later measure for the whole organization. Are we actually following these habits, or are there some places where we have problems or opportunities? And if we have something special for the technical people, we can add it here. And then recurring events. So this is something we need to do in our yearly cycle. And in this case, we're suggesting a yearly management review of goals and objectives. Okay, who's responsible and how often? So we can change that if we want to. And we can add our own. And if we noticed while defining this policy that, okay, there's some things here we want to do, but we're not doing them yet, we can also add some one-time tasks, and they will show up in a place where we can find them again over in the dashboard. I'm going to leave it for now. And we can change the implementation status of the policy if we want. If we just wrote it, it's just defined. If we're only doing some of it, we can change it, partially implement it. And now, since we talked a lot about controls, I just want to show you that it's down here. But otherwise, this is typically for more advanced users. So I wouldn't go into the details of this just now, but just know that this is how we hook the policies up to all the requirements of the standards. And here we have both the ISO standard and the DCL in one policy. So that's the smart part about this. One policy, two standards. Okay. And then if you want to have like formal improvement, you can use this part. I recommend to begin with, just simply say we're going to approve, and we can look at that later on if we need formal improvement. And save and finish. And I get a little juice. It's always nice. Stay hydrated. It can be a little bit dry work. So now we can see our policy here. This is the new policy we just created. So here's all the text that we wrote. And here we have the habits and the security roles that we can keep track of, and implementation status, and all the controls. So everything is here, and we can of course download it as a Word document, so we can send it to someone. And then I want to show you over here, we have the requirements. So this is the ISO standard, and here are all those many controls where some of them might be not applicable. And here are the ones we already defined with our top level policy. So that's how it's hooked up. And we did 2 birds with 1 stone, because we also got some of the DSEAL criteria with our top level policy. So that's how we can keep track of everything easily. And if we're doing these 2, it's in here as well. And that can also be the same set of policies. So, okay, I'm gonna pause and ask if there are questions. See something in the chat. If all policies are defined but not all implemented, can you pass already at this stage certification, or must all be fully implemented? Okay, great question again. So you can pass without having everything fully implemented, as long as you have a good plan for how to implement it, and that will typically be it can be part of the risk assessment. So it depends a little bit. So we're going to actually cover that in the next call with the risk assessment. If you have some big red risk, you cannot go for certification and pass. But you can have smaller things that are not fully in place. And the more you can tell the auditor that we already know this and we're working on it, and it's just it's something that takes a little time to get fully implemented, and that's why we haven't done it yet. Then they're going to say, that's fine, we're going to check up. We're going to check up in a few months and see that you have fixed these findings. Does that make sense? So basically, if you don't tell the auditor, if you don't show the plan and show this is what we're working on and it's coming, then they're going to mark it as a finding. But if you have it yourself first, then it's not a finding. Already using Cyberjuice, if we only have ISO, how to enable DSEAL. Okay, so that's something, let's talk about that afterwards, but it's totally possible to add an extra standard to your existing company. Let's take that after. Okay, let's see. What else did I also wanted to show that in the security organization, you can, of course, you can change the names of the roles and you can add your own roles. Yes. We have a lot of other features that I'm not going to go into today. We'll cover that in the next calls. But let me just get back to, I see we have something in the chat. Yeah, it's a setting on a company, exactly. We can add. Okay. So a little overview of our 6-week program here. So the goals and outcomes is that we're going to do, well, overall is to be compliant with the ISO standard or the DSEAL standard and create all the necessary documentation. And that means there's going to be risk assessment. We'll talk about that next week. And risk treatment, policies and procedure with Cyberjuice, training, and throughout the period, you can get sparing and support. Just use the Slack channel to send your questions and we will monitor that. So So we are here today, and we decided to open up this call and also this awareness training call for more people, because we thought this would be valuable, even if you're not in the full bootcamp, because they'll get a lot of value out of participating here and here. And the full program next week, we're going to go into risk assessment and how you do that inside the platform, and with like a structured way. So it's really, so it's really simple and doable. And the week after, we're going to go into generating more policy. So this week you just do your top level. I always like to start easy, so you get a good success in the first week, and you're all warmed up. So it'll be like before you do a big run, you do a little warm up. So this week is a bit of a warm up. Oh, I get effects here. So week 3, we're gonna go more into policies, and then we have awareness training, which is part of every one of those standards. They have awareness training as a requirement. So that's a super important part. And here we have a guest speaker, David, who is expert in how to build security culture. So I'm very excited about that. And of course, again, how can you use our platform to help you with that work? And then we have management review and yearly cycle. So how do you now you've created your risk assessment and your policy. So that's like a step 1, but now you need to maintain it and do your yearly cycle and make sure everything works, and you do continuous improvement, as we talked about. And the 6th call is then, okay, so how do you manage external security requirements? What are some good strategies? How can you use, if you're compliant, your documentation? How can you use your certification? And how do you actually proactively speak with external partners and customers once you've done all this work? So that's our 6 calls. And then after that, you just continue, of course, on your own. And we're here for support as needed. Okay. So, excuse me, I'm in a call here. Just 1 second. Someone just opened the door. So 5 minutes left. So aligning expectations. So with this program, you'll be able to solve a cybersecurity documentation problem much faster and less expensive than any other service that I know of. And it's also upskilling, because you learn a lot about cybersecurity standards. We do this as a teaching program as well. So you get that at the same time, which I think is actually, this is how we also want to help everyone, because there's a lack of these kind of skills out there. So by upskilling people already in your organization, again, you kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Shouldn't actually kill all those birds, should we? And it's a bargain, because we're creating a friendly space and want to get your feedback on the program and the user experience on the platform. So that's why we make it accessible to everyone. And we're here to answer your questions. So nobody will be left behind. You just have to do your homework. We cannot do that for you. So to ensure maximum outcome, make sure key personnel have time to go through the policy generation and the risk assessment. And it doesn't have to be a lot. I have seen one company do it in as little as 1 day. That was a small company with 5 people, but that is possible. It's really a lot. It really depends a lot on how much you need to discuss internally to make decisions. That's where I see the most time. That's the most time-consuming part. So the more people that are involved in making decisions, the longer it takes typically. So a good tip is to get the first version out, even if it's not perfect, and then iterate from there. So give someone the authority to just get the first version done, and then have a look and see what needs adjustment. And make sure you have a project lead on this on your side to drive progress. It doesn't have to be a technical person, but it should be someone who is pretty structured and good at and good at like getting the information out of other people and technical people. Okay. And then we have, so the period here is 5 weeks, 6 calls, so 1 hour webinar call per week. And you can send questions to our Slack channel between the calls. And we'll have a look if there are many, if there's some questions we want to, discuss also in the call, or we even need an extra Q&A session, we can put that in. And also I should mention that some of you have individual sessions between the call, where we help you out individually with some workshops. So that's also a possibility. Okay, homework. Everybody should join our Slack channel for Q&A. We'll send it out in an email after, and we also shared it in the chat. Maybe you can share it again, David. And the homework is also to log into the Cyberjuice platform. You'll get those that are already on board here will get a sign-up link individually for each company. And if you're not already in, just write me an email and we can set you up. So you go in and define your security organization and just a top level policy. So that's the only thing you need to do in this first week. And then next week, be prepared for risk assessment, so book some time in your calendar. And if you're not already part of our bootcamp, there's still time. Just send me an email right after the call, and we will include you and give you a special offer. Okay. I think that is it. I'll stop sharing. And we have 1 minute left for a question. No questions? I'm going to stop the recording.